Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Coffey. I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to God and Alcoholics Anonymous for my life and my sobriety. And life is good today. And I was talking to Bob. I want to thank Bob for inviting me out, and Joe and Tony for taking the ride out. Littlerock's out near Palmdale. My home group is the High Desert Big Book group in Palmdale, California. And if you're ever in town, we meet on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights at 8 o'clock, and please come and see us. Call Central Office. You'll find us listed, Anyway, I love it. I love coming to Las Vegas. I was talking to Bob about detoxes, in the Antelope Valley and Palmdale, Lancaster, there's no detoxes, and it's just the idea of being able to go to the detox centers on a regular basis like this group does is a tremendous service, and I wish we had something like that out in our area. We've got a lot of hospitals and institution work, and I'm involved with that. But my sobriety date's January 1st, 1990, and coming up, if I stay sober for another week or so, I'll be celebrating a birthday. And I'm just grateful that to have another sober holiday season. And because prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, especially those last 3 or 4 years of my drinking, I don't, it was Halloween to Valentine's Day was a blur, and the holidays were there was no fun in the holidays. It was a constant party, and I'm just an alcoholic that loves to drink, and I grew up in Southern California. I come from a long line of drunks, Irish, Italian, and Cherokee Indian. And my dad had 6 brothers and 2 sisters, and we just got a long line of boozers in our family. Drugs and alcohol just ran rampant in our family, and I was no exception. So when it came time for me to pick up my first drink, it was already there and it was already in place. And growing up in the area that I grew up in, we lived in the San Fernando Valley, and we moved out there when I was in 1966. I was 8 years old, and my dad bought a home there, and it was my dad, my mother, and my little baby sister, and my mom gave birth to my sister in 1966, and it was about 3 months after giving birth, and we just moved into the new house, and she suddenly passed away. And what happened was my dad had a job that he wasn't around much for. He worked for NBC News, and he was always on the go. And so he moved my grandparents in, 2 of my uncles, and 1 of my aunts into the house. And and they were all about drinking, and a typical morning for me, I grew up going to Catholic school, and a typical morning for me would be to get up and get ready to go to school. And my grandfather and my Uncle Denny were at the kitchen table at 6:30 in the morning playing cribbage, drinking Old Forester and Schlitz, and I'm sitting next to him, eating Frosted Flakes, and it was just, alcohol was just there, and it was always my job as a kid was to take the glass out of Grandpa's hand, the Old Forester, and the cigar out of his mouth when he'd pass out in the chair. And, it was just, so by the time I started to drink, I got 2 cousins, one's a year older than me, one was a year younger than me, and we were the Coffee Boys, and we ran that San Fernando Valley, and we went to those, we just tore it up, and it was a lot of fun. It was the drinking, my drinking back then was all fun, it was going to those open kegger parties every Friday and Saturday night, and heading out to the beach, and passing out on the beach. We used to be able to have big bonfires at County Line Beach, and we'd just pass out there after the keggers every weekend, and it was a great time, and I think I was sober about 60 days, and I heard Cliff Roach talk, and when he made that comment about one of the 20 questions should be, have you ever come to with the roof of your mouth sunburned? It was like the first time I ever bursted out laughing in AA, and I related to that because I can't tell you how many times I come to passed out on the beach on a Saturday morning, and the families are there, and they're like, just get away from the man. and it's 11 in the morning, and I'm just out, I'm bright sunburnt, my face is chapped, and none of my friends are around, and it's just me and a bunch of empty bottles, and I don't know what, but my alcoholic life had become the only normal one, and so when I first heard that from Cliff, it cracked me up. I had to, I related to that, and I grew up in a time, with it was in the late '60s and the '70s, and there was a lot of, just a lot of partying going on, and it was the lowrider car clubs, and it was the big kegger parties on the weekends, and in the area where I grew up in, you just go up top of Reseda Hill and you look over the valley and you see these helicopters, and you knew that's where the parties were. And you would just go to follow the line of helicopters, and you could always find me near the keg, and I don't know. It was a lot of fun for a lot of years, and growing up like that, my dad wasn't around much, and I had pretty much free realm of whatever I wanted to do, and I had an uncle, my Uncle Jerry, who was 4 years older than me. He's my dad's youngest brother, and he was my idol. And he was like he was the guy that I looked up to, because Uncle Jerry was cool, and he was in the lowrider car clubs, and he would get myself and my cousin Kirk and my cousin Gary. We would wax that car of his and shine those Krager rims. We'd do anything to hang out with Jerry, because Jerry had all the cool things going on. He had the girls, the lowrider chicks with the ratted up hairdo and the mini skirts and no underwear. And, we were just, we were 13 years old, and if we could just sit across the couch from one of them girls with no underwear, we would just be, we were in, and Jerry would, let us ride with him and cruise Van Nuys Boulevards, and, we'd clean that car up of his, and he'd put us in the back seat of that lowrider car, and he'd go pick up some girl hitchhiking and say, if you don't at least try, I'm going to beat your ass, and so it was a lot of fun. I don't know, it was just, but me and my cousins, we ran that valley together, and I was always the chicken one of the bunch, I was a guy that got a job at 14, and I've always been working, and I've always had a habit to feed, and I always never wanted to be without money because I love to drink, and typical time we'd find, we'd be going to the grocery store, and my cousin Gary would be taking 2 half-gallons of tequila and running out the front door, and my cousin Kirk would be in the back shoving filet mignons down his pants, and I'd be in line, buying corn on the cob or something, and I had the getaway car out in the parking lot, my old '62 Ford Falcon, and anyway, it was a lot of fun drinking. Jerry was the first one to ever get us drunk, and ever get us high, my uncle, and I'll never forget that. It was Old English 800, and it was warm, and it was Saturday morning. We were watching cartoons, and he gave us some of that Old English 800 and a bag of some of this stuff he called Acapulco Gold, and we just sat there and smoked that stuff and drank that beer and got the munchies and went to the store, and I got my first case of paranoia. I knew everybody in the store was watching me, and I just got that paranoia came back to haunt me later on in my drinking career, and but I don't know, Uncle Jerry was a big influence in my life, and those 2 cousins of mine too. We partied a lot together. I met a girl when I was 14 years old, and she was 13, and I met at the park where I used to drink, and ended up. Thank you. I like to drink, but anyway, I met this girl, and all through high school, she was engaged to get married, and went to different high schools together, and I was running with the coffee boys, and I was a dog. Anything that I could have an opportunity to, I did, and she thought we were going to get married, and by the time we got out of high school, it was time to pony up and get married, and by this time, I was working at this Gemco department store, and I'd met this other girl, and I got this girl here, and this girl I'm engaged to, and I'm 17 years old, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and My Uncle Jerry moved to Colorado and started working for this company, and he called me up one day. He said, "Mark, I got a job opening for you at this company in Colorado. Would you like to come out and work?" And I thought, heck yeah. So, the girl that I was in love with is going on the ice capades, and I made this big grandiose plan that we made this plan for her to go on tour in the ice capades, and after about 7 months, by the time she came back, she could come to Colorado and live with me, and I would have all my stuff lined up. And the girl I was engaged to, I just split town, and I just when I'm drinking, I'm selfish and self-centered. I don't care about anybody but myself. And anyway, so I left and moved to Colorado, and I broke that girl's heart, and started sending that other girl in the ice capades flowers and money and cards and flowers and money at every stop in the ice capades. And God, to this day, I've never heard from her, Funny thing was, when I got sober and moved back to California many years later, and I got a job working at this company, and every day I'd have to walk past her father's little shoe shop. It was right on the same block as my company, and I'd just look over there and wonder whatever happened to Mary, and it was just crazy. But I moved to Colorado and got involved in a business out there that was fueled by drugs and alcohol. And it was a small company at the time, but it grew rapidly. This was in the late 70s, and it was the waterbed industry. And the waterbed industry was booming. It spawned out of the head shop business. Most of the waterbed store owners were ex-head shop owners. Everything about that business was fueled by drugs and alcohol. And I'd sit there with these 4 guys after work, and we'd drink every night after work and play liar's dice. And this company just started booming. And we were in the wholesale end of it. We sold specifically to the retail stores, and we were in Colorado, we were in Denver, and it was just, you couldn't sell enough water beds. It seemed like there was a period of time when everybody in the country had to have a bed, and they had to have a water bed, and it was booming. And early on, moving back a little bit, I have some aunts that were my dad's sisters. They were really into diet pills, and I've always been a big kid, and I remember driving them around as a young kid. I was 16 years old, and they were all on welfare and had 9 different doctors, and I had a job, and if I drove them to their doctor and paid for it, then I get half the script. And these things enabled me to not pass out, to really drink the way I like to drink, and I enjoyed that. I'm a kind of alcoholic that wants to be present for everything. I don't want to miss anything. I know that something good's going to happen any minute, and if I go to sleep, I just won't. I'll miss it. And I'm the type of alcoholic that I can't go to sleep if there's alcohol left in the house. It just talks to me in the cupboards, and so but those aunts of mine got me, you're heavy kid, you need to try these, and it helped me out with my drinking. So when I moved to Colorado, though, I was 19 years old or 18 years old, and the bars there, you could be 18 to drink, and I hooked up with this friend of mine, and he was working for us at the time, and he was a drummer in this jazz band, and it was a fusion band, and him and I were like best friends, and we just did the club scene together and lied about our age, and he was playing in the bands, and it was on. Me and Uncle Jerry would just go to the bars and drink, and I became a regular at some of these bars, and then hung out with my friend Dion, and lives in Denver, and and just all you got to do is be around the band members, and there's some perks. And I was just I would carry his equipment, and it was great. It worked out that way. And we'd drink all night, and I'd go to work hungover almost every day, but it didn't matter because everybody at work drank like I did. Anyway, the business just did really well, and then they moved. They opened up a new location. They moved me to the new location to run the warehouse, and they moved me out of Denver. They sent me to Chicago, and Chicago's my kind of town to drink in. Chicago, the bars are open till 5 in the morning. There's the blues, the jazz, everything downtown, And man, it was heaven for an alcoholic of my type. They put me in a corporate apartment at 21 years old with a company car and expense account and no bosses. They're all in Colorado. And I'm on top of the world, and I'm drinking now. I'm drinking on a regular basis, going downtown every night, and just hanging out in the clubs and listening to some of the best blues I've ever heard. And I just love to sit there and just gel into the music. And alcohol I love to be around people in that stage of my drinking. I love to just get in the middle of everybody and just move and have fun. And my alcoholism hadn't taken me to that spot where it did later. It was a lot of fun for me then. And I lived in Chicago for about 3 years. And as my alcoholism progressed, I started not being able to function very well because I would go on these binges and I wouldn't be able to stop drinking. And I love it so much. I heard Bob share it one time, and it's me to a T. Once I start to have a drink, I have never been in that place where I'm drinking and somebody says, "Do you want another drink?" And I've never been to that place where I can say, "No, I'm fine right here." I'm never fine right here. I know that there's always going to be something around the corner. It's going to get better. And as my alcoholism progressed, I started to slack off at work, and but it didn't matter how bad I did at work. Everybody still bought waterbeds, and the business just continued to grow. It grew like 150% the first year in business. By the 5th year in business, it had grown like 300%, and we couldn't get enough supply for the vendors, And I had a room about, I don't know, I had a wholesale showroom about this size, maybe a little bigger, with about 50 bedroom sets in it, and it was just to bring wholesale customers to show, and I would bring the bar there after night, I would just, let's go party at my showroom, I'm an alcoholic, grandiose. I'm out there drinking and lying, and it was fun though. But as my drinking continued, I could no longer. I started not enjoying I started getting to that place where I start to drink, and the obsession for outside issue stuff would come up, and I'd get into some of that, and unfortunately, I drink. I do my drugs like I do my drinking. There's never enough, and once I have 2 or 3 drinks, there's no such thing as a bad idea. So every night I swear I'm going to just have a few drinks and go down and listen to some music, and I have a few drinks, and I'm on my way to Indiana or something, and I remember being at a Grateful Dead show at the Uptown Theater in Chicago, and I end up, in Lafayette, Indiana the next morning, and I'm supposed to open up the showroom, and I don't know, it's getting bad, and but the beds are still selling, and so we're going to open up another location, and they said, "Mark, do you want to go you ready to get out of Chicago and try something new?" And in the back of my mind, I need to get out of Chicago. The bars are open all night long, so I'm staying up all night long. So I need to get away from staying up all night long, and I need to get away from drinking all night long. So we opened up a new location in Clearwater Beach, Florida, and they sent me to Florida, and I was there about 5 hours in the hotel bar, and I noticed these 2 cocktail waitresses kept disappearing in this room, and I knew what they were doing, and I asked them about if they, what they were doing, and the next thing you know, they're partying in my room that night, and I'm introduced to a whole new way of getting loaded, and now I'm in Florida, the capital of it all, and I'm drinking around the clock, and but as throughout this is going on, I'm losing the interest of the idea of having fun when I'm drinking. I can no longer, in the beginning, I like to be around people, I like to go to the parties, I want to be around everybody, and now I'm starting to isolate, The book refers to it, and it describes me to the T, and I became disgustingly and dangerously antisocial. I became the lone wolf, and my alcoholism took me to that place now that I could no longer be around people. And I love people. I love being in the middle of the herd. I love being in the middle of the pack when I was drinking and having fun. And now every time I drink, I'm like just getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And, I am just, I'm gone, but the beds are still selling. And there's still money coming in, and I'm renting a house on the water causeways with these two cocktail waitresses, me and these two waitresses. And, they're getting a little tired of what I'm doing. But anyway, I finally get a DUI in a company car, and in Florida, they take away your company car, and by now I'm in sales, and I got to cover a few different states, and without a car, it's hard to be in sales. And when you're in phone sales and you're hungover every day and you can't talk because you've been drinking and being up for days, and you just can't communicate. And so I can't enjoy it. I can't get there anymore. I cannot get back to that way alcohol made me feel. And And finally in Florida, my solution was I lost the house. I moved close to my work. And, my alcoholic life had become the only normal one. I'm a big guy, dressed like this, going to work, in August on a 10-speed. And, and I sweat a lot. And, I'm riding a 10-speed to work after drinking, and I got booze coming out of my pores. I smell like booze. I'm sweating. I'm dripping. And I go to the office, and they're like, "What is your problem?" And I'm like, "I don't have a car. What do you expect me to do?" My alcoholic life had completely became my only normal life, and I didn't see anything wrong with it, And I remember, community service work. They put me, they gave me I had to go to the sewage plant and clean the blades of the sewage machine, and it's a little steamy in August in Florida, and I don't know. But anyway, lost that job, lost that job after 10 years of working there. And, I started working in the retail business. And anyway, I ended up having to work at this topless bar as a bartender and a bouncer because I owed the owner of the bar a lot of money. And my friend that I was hanging out with, it was his girlfriend, and it's a biker clubhouse, and I'm showing up in my OP shorts and my tank top, and I'm just a defiant one, and I don't know, by the time I left Florida, I'd met with, hooked up with one of the dancers there, and her 2-year-old son, and somebody came to me and took with a picture of me in my car and this kind of stuff, and they told me that the debt that I owed was out of their hands, and I knew what that meant. So within 48 hours, I was back to California and headed out to California to lie to this girl and told her, let's go out to L.A. and my dad and family live out there, and I can get a job working in the studios. And I painted this big rosy picture, and it was all BS. And brought her out here and just started drinking again. But those two cousins of mine, those two cousins that I drank and ran the streets with. When I left California and I was 19 and one was 19 and one was 18, my cousin Gary was living in the park. He was homeless. He was, and my other cousin Kirk was making the rounds of all the family's couches. And when you have a big family, it takes a while to burn out everybody. So he was making the rounds, and I got to California with my girlfriend and her 2-year-old son. And by then, my Uncle Jerry moved back to California, so I started working with him again, and I just started drinking just like I did. I thought that if I could not drink whiskey, I'd be okay and just drink beer. And I tried that for a little while, and it didn't work. But anyway, when I got back to California, my cousins said, "Well, I'm having a party, and I want you to come to the party." And I was excited to see them, and I go to this restaurant, and I don't know what's going on. I'm up at the bar slamming down shots of Cuervo, and and my cousins are all hanging out, and there's about 50 people in the room, and they start singing him happy birthday, and they bring a cake out, and it's got a 5 on it. And he's sober 5 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'd never heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd never been to an AA meeting. I'd never heard of AA. The people I hung out with, if you didn't drink the way I did, we didn't hang out, and my cousin Gary was sober 5 years, and my cousin Kirk was sober 7 years, and their lives were going good. And my life was in the toilet, and they were the first time I'd ever heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, and their lives were wonderful. And my cousin Gary just bought a new home, had a beautiful wife he met in AA with a couple kids, and I drank for another year after that, and finally got sober January 1st of 1990. As a matter of fact, I remember moving my cousin into his new home on New Year's Day of 1990. And at any rate, these guys, if they could get sober the way they drank, because I knew the way they drank, I figured I might have a chance. And I came into Alcoholics Anonymous pretty desperate and pretty willing, and I got hooked into a home group. I didn't get into a home group until probably about 8 months. 8 months I was just going to meetings and meetings and meetings. That's all I did was hang out at the clubs and go to meetings, go to the dances, and go to the coffee shop, and of just going to meetings. At about 8 months of sobriety with no program, whatever, just meetings and meetings and meetings. I really wanted to get loaded. I wanted to drink, and somebody told me to go talk to these couple of these guys and these old timers and tell them all the things that I was doing in AA. Tell them about all of the dances I was going to and hanging out at the club. And I thought he was serious, so I did. And I went up and I told these guys, and I said, I'm going to 15 meetings a week, and I'm going to the coffee shop every night, and I'm going to the dances. I even went to a convention, and and I still want to drink, and I don't think AA is working for me. And he pulled me aside and he told me that asked me some questions like who's my sponsor, and I told him that I use a lot of different people as sponsors. I go to so many meetings and I hear so many good things from so many people. I pick and choose. And he says, "Where's your home group?" And I said, "I got about 6 home groups. I go to different meetings all over the place." And they said, "What step are you working?" And and I just said I really I read the steps on the wall, and and he told me I had an off the wall program, and he basically told me that I was full of crap, and if I wanted to drink, to go drink. Go out there and get it on, he said. He said, but don't kid yourself to think that you ever tried Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous, you never did what's in that book. You haven't even opened that book. And that night he said, get a sponsor. And we went to the Cocos after the meeting, and they said, did you find a sponsor? And I said, I'm going to check a few guys out. I want to come back next week and hear more guys share. And they said, no, he's your sponsor. And they assigned me a sponsor that night. And that night, it was a Thursday night, and they said, Mark, they said, Friday night we go to the Mason and Lassen speaker meeting, and we need a door greeter. You're going to be a door greeter at that meeting. And Tuesday night we have a book study, and you're gonna take on the literature commitment there. We just had an opening. And then on Thursday night we need someone to mop the floors. And on Saturday night he said we needed somebody for a cookie commitment. And the thing was that night I left with a sponsor and 4 commitments a week. And I'm without a shadow of a doubt, I'm positive that if I didn't have the commitments in my life, I wouldn't be sober today. And that embarked on a whole new journey for me. And Alcoholics Anonymous took on a whole new light after getting involved and getting into that big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and having a home group and having commitments. And it just opened up an incredible amount of it opened me up. And one of the things that happened though in my first year of sobriety is I watched my cousins. I watched my cousin Gary get the big house and the big job and all of the material things, and I watched money, property, and prestige divert him from his primary purpose. And I watched him drink again and lose his business and his house and his family and become homeless again, and that all happened like I was about a year and a half sober. And my cousin Kirk, the same thing happened. He quit going to meetings, quit sponsoring guys, quit calling a sponsor. He drank again, and unfortunately his alcoholism took him to that place where, jails, institutions of death, and for him it was death, and he was drinking and had his little daughter in the car and got in a head-on collision, and, he was in a coma for 18 months, and he was like my brother, and we had to watch him for 18 months and then unplug him, and, I don't know, they were examples to me, good and bad, what to do and what not to do in Alcoholics Anonymous, and, I was active in a home group, and I was sober about a year and a half, and that guy from Denver, Colorado called me up and said, "Mark, I'm getting married, and I want you to come be a best man at my wedding. This is my old drinking buddy." And I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't go to Colorado and be around all my old friends. And my sponsor assured me that if I took Alcoholics Anonymous with me, and if I could be a sober member and go there and show up and be an active member, everything would be fine, And it was on my 9th step at the time, and he said, "What a beautiful opportunity for you to take this opportunity to go be in that wedding, and while you're in Denver, to go and hook up with the old waterbed boss and talk about and set up a payment plan for everything you stole from them for 10 years. Because I was a thief. I would, towards the last 4 or 5 years of my drinking, a lot of the inventory left that facility and went into my partying. And, and I was scared to death, and, to go there and do that, I'm thinking, this is crazy, but I had faith in my sponsor, and I had received some gifts in Alcoholics Anonymous by now. I had some faith that things were going to be okay, and I went to Colorado, and 2 weeks prior to going to Colorado, I was at my home group meeting. It was the Mason last and Friday night speaker meeting, and since I have a commitment there, I got a good seat. Gentleman came up to share, and he's sober. He got sober the year I was born in 1959, and it was one of those first speaker meetings that I was sitting in real close, and where the speaker reached out and got me. He touched me, and his name was Johnny from Long Beach, and I don't know, there was some connection there that I got with him at that meeting, and I never did anything like he did. I'm not the guy that's gone out there and jumped off of bridges and tried to commit suicide like Scott, last week, and he's a good friend of mine. But I'm just a drunk that just piddled through life, and But Johnny reached me that night, and I don't know, it gave me a little bit of faith to go and do this thing, and I went to Colorado and went to the hotel where the wedding was at, it's in Boulder, and I get there with all my old friends, and they're having a bachelor party that night, and everybody's drinking, and they're doing shots of tequila. We used to always drink a lot of tequila together, and man, everybody's just having a good time partying, and I'm just like, this isn't crazy, and the guys are in the bathroom, locked in the bathroom. I know what's going on in there, and there's all this booze, and I'm thinking, my head's telling me if I just get loaded, I don't have to make that damn amends. My head's working me over pretty good, but my sponsor had already had me set up a ride to a meeting when I got there, and I had set up a ride, so I got a ride over to this meeting in Boulder, and I get there, and the cab drops me off, and the meeting is ending, and there's no meeting going on that night, and I hook up with these guys. I tell them I can't go back to the hotel. I'm scared I'm going to get loaded, and they said, well, come with us. We're going to go to another meeting. And they drove me right back to my hotel, and right across the street from my hotel was the Boulder University, and they pulled into the Boulder University parking lot, and it was a full-blown Alcoholics Anonymous convention. And it was going on right then and there at that, across the street from my hotel. And, and out walks the main speaker that night is that guy that I heard 2 weeks earlier in California, Johnny. And there was just one of those moments that I came to believe that there really was a power greater than myself. And it wasn't him, but there was something that placed me there. And I talked to him after the meeting. He told me to hang out and go to some marathon meetings, go check out the dance, since that's what you like to do. And I did that, and I walked back to the hotel that night at 3 a.m. and stepped over the bodies and went and did that best man in the wedding. I was the only sober member, and it all worked out well. And then my old boss, came and picked me up that day, and we went up to his house. He had a big house up in the mountains, and sitting out on the deck, up there, and I let them know about everything I'd stolen, and I needed to set up a restitution plan, and we took care of that old business, and I left Colorado on fire prior to, he said, if you ever want a job back in Colorado, we got one waiting for you. And I came back to California, and I was on fire with these amends now, and, I'm like, this is working out great, and of course, not all of them were that great, but, I just stayed busy, and I ended up moving out to Palmdale, which is about an hour out of LA, and I got a job that I've maintained now for the last 17 years, and I ended up marrying that girl that I brought back from Florida with me, and and she got involved in Al-Anon, and we've got a good life today, and I got a son that's just turned 21, a stepson, and he was out here Sunday celebrating his birthday, My wife was telling me that they came out and she said, yeah, he drank about 5 Long Island iced teas and then got tired. And I said, really? But I don't know, I moved out to Palmdale, Lancaster, and I was used to a pretty structured meeting environment in the San Fernando Valley, and I came out to Palmdale, Lancaster, and it was like culture shock, and it was, meetings would start 10 minutes after the hour, and the secretary would show up, 3 minutes before, and the coffee would get made maybe by the break, and, just stuff that I wasn't used to, and my sponsor constantly would tell me that if I wanted to make a difference, to get involved, and, I got involved with a home group there, in Palmdale, and I started going, getting involved there, and even though I couldn't stand the meetings, I couldn't stand the people in them or the meetings there, I got involved, and I was an active member of this group, the Palmdale group, for 10 years, and after about 3 or 4 years of being there on a regular basis and having commitments, all of a sudden the group started to get better, and and I started to really love my sobriety and cherish it, and we had a daughter between us, my wife and I, and I've got a 14-year-old daughter now who's never seen her dad drunk, and I'm grateful for that. And we live a life. It took her 6 years to get into Al-Anon, and she was resentful at me for getting involved in AA, and she was resentful because I was going to lots of meetings, and I had a lot of friends, and I had people around me, and life was getting better, and she was just like the Dead Sea. It was just stagnant. And then she finally got to experience her own deal in Al-Anon, and I'm grateful for that, because today our house is a recovery household, and she's got her Al-Anon program and the women she sponsors, and and I got the guys that I work with and my sponsor and the home group, and we have a very busy life and a busy house, and I remember I was sober. I think it was about 4 years or 5 years sober, and I was working all these crazy hours in this new job I had gotten, and always there about 100 hours a week for a while, and still doing 4, 5, 6 meetings a week, and just juggling all kinds of stuff, and I came down with something called Bell's palsy, and Bell's palsy was like it's almost as if I had a stroke. The whole right side of my face started to droop, and I had no nerve movement in it, and I remember I just would sit there and I would just slobber, and I had no control over the slobbering, and my face was as if I had a stroke, and and my sponsor, I was embarrassed to come to meetings, and thank God for sponsorship. I got a sponsor that has a sense of humor, and he said, "Mark, I want you to come meet me somewhere," and I said, he said, "We need to spend some time together," and I went to meet him, and he put me in his car, and we went to go on a panel, and I'm slobbering all over the place. And, he took me to the Glendale Adventist Nut Ward, and I was able to go into the Nut Ward facility and not be the only slobberer. And I was able to sit there and try and share my experience, strength, and hope with these guys. And I had about 3 guys on Thorazine slobbering with me. And it was great, My sponsor knew that I couldn't save my ass and my face at the same time, and when I first moved up to the Antelope Valley, he made me get out there and get involved in H&I. I told him I'm going to these clubhouse meetings, and I'm getting there early, and I'm there an hour early, and nobody's there, and I'm there, and I'm obviously the new face in town, and nobody, they're at the club, they're playing their pinochle, and nobody's like even looking up for a newcomer, and I'm going, I can't stand this, and he says, well, then here, I want you to get an H&I commitment, and because I couldn't go talk to people, I was afraid to talk to people, and he says, you get an H&I commitment, now you have a panel, now you have a reason to talk to somebody, and you go up and ask them if you'd like to go on a panel with you. And that was my reason to talk to people. I'm going, and then he says, whoever doesn't want to go on the panel, who not to hang out with. And then all of a sudden I discovered, a whole new way to talk to people, and I'm getting involved in H&I work, and I'm going on these panels, and I'm getting to know the people that are active members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that whole thing with the Bell's palsy really turned, it lasted for about a year, and then it went away, but that year was a rough year for me. But I once I was able to laugh at myself, man, I was like, let's go to the nut ward, I'm ready to go back there. I can go there anytime, and where I live in Littlerock, it's about an hour and a half each way to my job, and so I got that 3 hours of commute time and working a lot of hours and going to 7 meetings a week, 6 meetings a week. I'm an active member and in my home group, and I'm just restless and irritable, and I remember going to calling my sponsor all the time, I can't stand it out here, and and I'm coming home and I'm tired and I'm angry, and my wife's not doing things right, and my kids aren't behaving, and I'm pissed off all the time, and I come into the house and I'm slamming things around. This is like at 7 years of sobriety, and my sponsor gives me directions that are ridiculous, and thank God for sponsorship again. He wants me to pull over at this, about a half a mile from my house on the way home every night, and he wants me to open the door and let God in the car and pull the seatbelt over for God. And I'm like, this is so lame, and I won't do it, and I'm still angry and pissed off at home, and then he gives me the most ridiculous instructions ever, and he tells me, and then I want you to, once you got God in the car, I want you to sing to God on the way home, in the car. And he says, I want you to sing Zippity-Doo-Dah. And I'm like, yeah, uh-huh. And, but there's something about lying to your sponsor, when he would say to me every day, did you sing Zippity-Doo-Dah? And I'd lie to him and say, yes. And he knew I was lying, and about the third day, I got God strapped in the car, and I'm about a half a mile from home, and nobody's around, and I'm in the car by myself, and I start singing, Zippity-Doo-Dah, zippity-hey, my, oh my, what a wonderful day. And I tell you, you cannot sing Zippity-Doo-Dah and get out of the car pissed off. You can't. And I'd sing Zippity-Doo-Dah, and I'd get out of that car, and I'd be laughing. I'd be coming in the house grinning. And my wife was like, what is your problem? The whole house is on eggshells, and I'm coming in laughing every night now because I'm taking sponsored direction, singing some stupid song about Mr. Bluebird on my shoulder, and my sponsor telling me, don't forget that's God, my, oh my, what a wonderful day, and I don't know, I'm just... If it hadn't been for sponsorship, I know that I would self-destruct. And, today my life is full and rich. And, my father, I'm very close to my dad. And my dad's 75 years old, and he's about ready to move back into the house with us because he's got cancer. And we're in a position, my wife wants to take care of him until he goes, and he's he's very active in my children's lives, and all of that couldn't have happened if it hadn't been for Alcoholics Anonymous, because I was the kind of guy that when I was living in Chicago, and I was getting ready to go partying up in the Wisconsin Dells, and I remember getting a phone call from my sister. My sister called up and said, Dad just had a massive heart attack, and we don't think he's going to make it through the weekend. And, I had already started drinking, and so it was as if I could just turn that off. Like I never got that phone call, and went away for the weekend and came back, and, and then I called home on a Tuesday to see if Dad was still alive, and my father and I, I'm his only son, and, we're very close, and thank God that he didn't die that time, and I was able to make my amends to my dad, and I was able to make things right, and I do that today by being an active participant in his life today. And, I have two sisters. My dad had remarried and married another woman with some kids of her own, and then they had a girl between them. And, the alcoholism runs rampant through my family. One of my sisters won't talk to me right now because she was, she had a 30-plus Vicodin day habit, and she was drinking and doing Vicodin all the time, and finally got her to go to some meetings, and then the typical thing now for them to do to wean them down off Vicodin is to put them on methadone, and then she couldn't kick the methadone for 2 years, and the only time she decided to get off methadone was because her vanity kicked in and she started to gain a little weight. And but the last person she'll come to is her sober brother, and my other sister, she's been struggling in and out of AA for years, and I'm forever grateful that because of sponsorship and a home group that I've been able to have this way of life, and our home group at the High Desert Big Book Group, is that we started a new group 3 years ago. It started 5 years ago with some of us in my home as a book study for the men I sponsor and the men they sponsor. And it grew from there into a regular group. And we have a Monday night book study, and then our Wednesday night and our Friday night. And, it gives me a sense of purpose. It gives me a place to be on a regular basis, These guys here that I sponsor that came out with me, they know where I'm at every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, And we get the opportunity to try to carry the message, and we bring it. We go into some institutions. There's Warm Springs, there's Lancaster Prison, there's Acton Rehab, and it's just a wonderful thing. And my sobriety today is my job. I did get a job working. My dad got me hooked up to these people in the studios, and I got this job working for this company. And it was a small independent company that was bought out by a big corporation, and there's a lot of fear going on, and they've been cutting jobs all the time for the last 3 years, and I don't know, I just bottomed out on the fear, and I have faith that God will take me through it, and it's been a great trip. And I got friends in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that I've watched what they've gone through. My good friend Scott, who was here last week, if he can stay sober through some of the stuff he's been through, and my sponsor Bob Fisher, Bob is him and I are very close, and I'm current with my sponsor, and it's guys that walk this walk and do this deal, and today, my daughter and I are developing a relationship that I never thought possible. She's 14 now, and somewhere I lost her between 13 and 14. She wants nothing to do with Dad anymore. Dad's like, not cool. Just drop me off at the mall on the outside, and get out of here, and make sure that I have a cell phone and a MySpace account. But she doesn't have those things right now. But she knows. Her and I are really close, and it's the apple of my eye. It's the joy in my life, and I could never have had any of this without Alcoholics Anonymous. And I never really got involved in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous until I was a couple years sober. And what really brought it home for me was guys like Bob that I went to a couple of the book study, the workshop weekends, and there was that guy that I owed a lot of money to, in Florida, and I was 10 years sober when I was in a workshop meeting with I think Bob and Sheldon, and I had felt that the book says that some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter, and I was traveling one year. I was about 5 years sober, and I wrote this guy an honest letter because I knew that the last time I talked to him, my life was on the line. I wrote this letter and mailed it from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, with no return address. Making sure that he had no idea where I was at, and it had gone away. Until I was 10 years sober and I was in a workshop meeting, and damn, if somebody doesn't bring out the fact that it talks about even the most ruthless creditors, and in 1939 what the ruthless creditors might have been, the loan sharks, the bootlegger, that wasn't Visa or MasterCard. And so I've been on a search, and I'm willing now to have been, I've actually made the effort to try to find this guy, and it was just 6 months ago that I got in contact with that woman that I split from, that I was engaged to get married to, and we had done a lot of things. She had put herself through a lot of things when I was with her as a little kid and as a young kid, and I don't know, I kept track of her name on the internet, and all of a sudden it popped up. She popped up, with her back to her maiden name. And I talked to my sponsor, and I felt that it was time to contact her and make the amends. And I was able to contact her 6 months ago, and she lives in San Diego, and I was able to meet her and have lunch and make the proper amends, and just to clean up the wreckage of my past and to keep my side of the street clean. And in doing that, my life gets better and better. And I'm forever grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you're new and struggling, the book talks about, in working with others, it's one of my favorite passages. It says, life will take on a new meaning, and it's taken on a new meaning for me. And I get to watch people recover, to see the loneliness vanish, to see them help others. And, I can't watch people recover, and I can't see the loneliness vanish, and I can't see them help others unless I'm smack dab in the middle of my home group watching it on a regular basis. If I'm scattered all over different meetings, I never get to see that on a regular basis. And for that, I'm truly grateful. Thanks.